What's up, Lazy Dog fam? Hope everybody out there is having an awesome day. Today we're going to be working in the tomato and pepper patch here behind me. I want to do some early comparisons because we got a lot of different varieties planted here. We need to trellis some more. We need to do some more Florida weave on our Determinate tomatoes, and we need to get these peppers trellised before the storm comes in tonight. So if you haven't been following along, we've got 4 rows in this plot, which is about 25 by 60. First row is all Indeterminate tomatoes, about 7 or 8 different varieties there. Second row is all Determinate tomatoes, quite a few varieties there. Third row is kind of just a hodgepodge mixture of stuff. We'll go over that in a minute. And then this last row is all peppers. Now all 4 rows of this plot we have on subsurface drip irrigation, so we can minimize leaf moisture, reduce the amount of weeds we get between the rows here, and reduce our plant diseases. Let's start off here with these Indeterminate tomatoes. So we have these supported by these square cages right here, which are doing a pretty good job so far. And we did mulch these guys with some wheat straw just because it's hard to weed there in and amongst those cages. So I usually don't use a lot of mulch in my gardens, but in this case, when I'm using those cages, I have found it to be advantageous. And the last time we did a video on these Indeterminate tomatoes, I said I wasn't going to prune them anymore, but I told a story. I did prune them one more time just to try to keep the leaves from touching the soil or that straw there, just to give them a little more airflow. I certainly this time will not prune them again, but I did prune them one more time just to keep the kind of bottom base of the plant or those bottom leaves from touching the straw or soil there. And every year when I grow Indeterminate tomato varieties, I'm reminded about how much more effort they require than Determinate tomatoes. So we have to come in here every, I don't know, probably every week at least, and just kind of help guide these things up through here so we get a little better airflow. Otherwise they'll just start kind of running all out the sides of these cages here. So we try to be a little careful with it, but pull those branches up and kind of get this running to the top of the cage, get some good airflow there between those plants. That will help out with our diseases and pests and stuff like that. And when we spray, it will allow us to get better spray coverage across the entire plant. So these guys, when you consider the pruning, the mulching, coming in here and doing this every week or so, yeah, they require a lot more effort, but hopefully it'll be worth it this time. And now for a little comparison, and I'm sorry, it's really windy out here today. I hope you can still hear me. I don't really use plant labels because they just don't seem to hold up throughout the growing season. So the way I remember what I planted is I kind of make a planting map. So I have row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4 there, and the different varieties in order. So let's go along this row of Indeterminates and kind of see what looks good and what maybe doesn't look so good. We don't have any ripe fruits yet, so we can't do any taste tests, but we can at least look at the plant vigor and compare some of these varieties. Now on this row of Indeterminate tomatoes here, I've not grown any of these varieties before, so they're all new to me. Let's start out with these first 2 here. This is a variety called Abe Lincoln, and I know he was a pretty good president, but I haven't been super impressed with his tomato variety. Of all the Indeterminate tomatoes, this one here, man, it's not growing much at all. Got some leaf curl there. No really signs of any fruit, a few flowers, whereas we got fruits on some of those down there. I don't know about this variety here. Not doing a whole lot. We'll have to see if they just taste out of this world. It might be worth it. But looks like production's gonna be low. Plant vigor's definitely low. So that's Abe Lincoln. Here we've got German Johnson, which is another heirloom variety. That's these 2 right here. And these look pretty good for an heirloom, which are tough for us to grow down here in the south. But those look pretty daggum good. I'm pretty happy with those. And they look pretty vigorous and just, you know, good, healthy looking plants. The next 2 here are, this one's called Kellogg's Breakfast. It looks better than the Abe Lincoln, but not as good as the German Johnson. Kicking along pretty good. Not as quite dense of foliage as we got on those German Johnsons there, but Nice good airflow there. So still happy with the Kellogg's breakfast. Then we get into some grape tomatoes, and I have two different varieties I'm comparing here. So the first two here, this variety is called Sweethearts, and then these next two, that variety is called Mountain Vineyard. And so far the Sweethearts looks like the winner. Look down here, lots and lots of fruits right there, just waiting to get ripe. Same thing on this guy here, loaded up with fruits there. And these plants are a little taller, which I expected. The Mountain Vineyard is somewhat semi-determinate variety, but the fruit production on it seems a little slower. We're getting a few down there, but not loaded up nearly like the Sweethearts are. So we'll just have to see. Maybe these will come around sooner or later, but the early winner for grape tomatoes is Sweethearts. And then past the grape tomatoes, we've got all of our boys here. We've got Lemon Boy, Purple Boy, and Better Boy. These first two here are Lemon Boy, and they're looking pretty good. Not quite as good as their cousin Purple Boy here, which are looking really, really good. And then the best looking boys of the bunch are the Better Boys down here, the red tomatoes. And of all the indeterminates I'm growing, these here seem to be doing the best. And we got some good tomatoes down there coming along, waiting to get big and get ripe. So as far as the indeterminates go, along this row, Better Boy seems to be the winner so far. So we got some clear differences there between all those indeterminates on that first row. Now let's compare these determinate tomatoes. And if you've watched me garden much before, you know I love determinate tomatoes. Those are my favorite. They require the least amount of effort. They're more vigorous. These are behind me here, were planted several weeks, if not maybe a whole month behind those indeterminates, and a lot of them are already caught up to them. They make a lot of tomatoes at one time. I just like determinates a lot better. Now some of these I have grown before, some of them I haven't grown before, and there's not a whole lot of difference here, but we will take a look at them and see what we can see. And for these determinate tomatoes, I planted 4 of each variety, so it worked out well. The varieties are separated by our Florida weave stakes there. So starting off at the beginning of the row, we've got Bella Rosa, one we grow every year. Those are looking really good, some of the larger plants we have. Second one here, we have Red Snapper, one I grew for the first time last year. Those are probably the largest plants I have. That last year, that was the biggest determinate tomato I had seen. Just lots and lots of foliage. No tomatoes obviously yet, but we got lots of blooms on those guys. The Red Snapper's looking good. Go right here, we've got Summer Pick, and we lost one right here, not due to a weakness of the tomato, but dog, I haven't been able to train the dog not to squash the tomatoes yet. So we have lost a few here and there. We lost that one, but we still got 3 of the Summer Pick variety that are looking pretty good. Not as big as the others, but this one was a fairly productive variety for us last year. The smallest of all these is probably this section right here, this Florida 91 variety. Now it looks a lot more bushier than some of the other ones, but as far as height, plant height, they are definitely the smallest. Still nice, healthy looking plants. I expect some good production off these, just not as tall as the others. Going down here, this one is called Roadster. This is one I haven't grown before. This one seems to be a little more upright than some of the others. The plants there are looking really good, needing another line of Florida weave, which we'll do here in a minute. On down here, one more I haven't grown before called Southern Ripe. Got a good amount of variability here between these guys. Some of them are looking really good, some of them just looking okay. We'll just have to wait and see on those guys. And then down here at the end, we've got our paste type tomatoes. We've got a variety called Tachi and a variety called Invincible. So I got 2 Tachis and then 3 Invincible plants here. And I can't tell a huge difference between these guys yet. We'll have to wait till we get some fruit production on these and some of the rest of these to really make some conclusions there. We'll be able to compare, you know, how many tomatoes we're getting, which ones are the most productive, which ones taste the best, all that good stuff. So hard to really tell any big differences right now. Now on this third row, I mentioned I've got all kind of different stuff here. We've got some indeterminate tomatoes, we've got some tomatillos, we've got some peppers, we've got some determinate tomatoes on the end. But these first 6 plants here that are in cages, these are indeterminate varieties that are not even on the market yet. So these are varieties bred by Seminous Seeds, and what they did was they tried to take popular varieties and add some virus resistance. In this case, they're trying to add tomato spotted wilt virus. You'll see it a lot of times abbreviated TSWV. Had to make sure I get that right. And that's a big one for us down here in the South. We get that a lot. So we've got Better Boy Plus, Celebrity Plus, and then Big Beef Plus. We've got 2 of each planted right here. And these were planted a lot later than those other tomatoes. So they're a little behind, but they're coming along pretty fast. And I don't have any idea which seed companies are going to be carrying these varieties next year, if they carry them at all. Like I said, they're not available now. I got some from the breeder to test them out just to see how they would do. And I don't really have a direct comparison with the exception of Better Boy. I do have a regular Better Boy planted back over there, and then we have Better Boy Plus here. We can compare it. I grew Celebrity last year, so I kind of got an idea of what that looks like. I can compare the Celebrity Plus to that. I've never grown Big Beef before, so we'll just have to see how that Big Beef Plus does. But this is an interesting little trial because nobody else has got these varieties. We'll just see how they do. So upon closer inspection there, you can see these aren't as big as those other ones because they were planted a lot later. And they were small for a little while, but once I healed them up and got some mulch around them there, man, they really took off. So these first 2 are the Better Boy Plus. I think the biggest ones would be the Celebrity Plus here. Those look pretty good, and I'd have to say of the 3, the least impressive would be the Big Beef Plus, but we'll just have to see how they do long term. Over here we got these tomatillos that are starting to just run wild. Some of them have broken off to the wind. I'm doing like a tall post Florida weave here. I need to put another line of string ASAP before the wind breaks any more of those. They're just climbing all over the place. Quite unruly. First time growing tomatillos, so definitely noticing that about them. Had one break right there where we put that stake, but that's all right. We got plenty. And then we've got these peppers and a few determinate tomatoes down here that we just filled in the end of the row with. We need to go ahead and get some Florida weave on those too. And lastly, with our peppers here, these guys have needed to be trellised for about a week now. I just haven't got around to it. We're gonna do it today. Some of the plants are leaning over. This one here broke. That's why it's looking so pitiful. I think the dog may have laid on it, but I tried to stand it back up. Sometimes they'll kind of heal themselves, but I think that one's toast. We may just pull it. Well, we got bell peppers in here, planted a variety called King Arthur. We got some yellow bells here, some banana peppers. Really the only ones producing so far are these lunchbox type peppers here. I think this is a variety called Gypsy. And we could eat those right now, but these will turn a pretty kind of yellow, orange, then red color. So we're going to leave those on there so they can get prettier, and the flavors will intensify as well once they turn colors. If we keep going, we've got some little small pimento type peppers here, some yellow, red, and orange ones. These guys here are starting to produce pretty good. You can see quite a few peppers on there, so those are going to get heavy pretty soon. That's why we got to get them trellised. These little guys here are the ones I was kind of waiting on to get a little taller, and in hindsight I should have just planted those at the end of the row and put them on cages. But these little heatless habaneros right here are a lot more bushier. They don't get real tall, so we'll still be able to get one line of trellis around these guys, but they don't need near the support some of these taller varieties or plants do. And then down here on the end, we've got our hotter stuff, or kind of hotter stuff. We've got some pepperoncinis, Big Jim, poblanos, some Santa Fe Grand, and then some Tabascos here on the end. So not a whole lot to see there on those peppers because we don't have a lot of fruits yet, but we should be getting more fruit soon, and we can do some more fair comparisons there between all those varieties. I've got to get some Florida weave around these guys before the storm comes in and knocks any more of these over, or the dog knocks any more of them over. So I'm gonna go with metal T-post on the peppers, just like I did the Determinate tomatoes, the 5-foot post. Put them in the ground about 1 foot, so they're about 4 feet out of the ground, and that should work pretty well. I've got wooden stakes, but sometimes they'll rot on me, so I'm gonna go with the metal T-post. And since we're going metal on the post, I think we can get away with 4 plants between each set of posts, just like we did with the Determinate tomatoes. So let me go grab some posts. Let's get this done before the storm comes.
When the sky said the winter time was coming on, and you cried to see a shadow, babe, was growing long across the lawn. Another song.
All right. Got our Florida weave. At least one line ran on those peppers right there. And that should help a ton, keeping these guys stood up so they don't fall over and break, and the dogs can't really get in here and mess them up as much anymore. So those are looking good. On over to these Determinate tomatoes here. When we run our first line on these guys, we try to get close to that main stem there, or as close as possible. But when we run these subsequent lines, we don't really worry about that as much. We just kind of wrap around all the foliage there, and they will look like poo a little bit after the first day or so, but they recover pretty quick. These things are pretty tough. So we're just going to wrap around the foliage, weave around those plants, put a second line on these puppies here so they'll stay well supported when they start putting fruit on pretty soon. And there we go, second line of Florida weave on those Determinate tomatoes there. So you can see we put the strings about 6 inches apart or so, which will mean we'll get at least 3 more lines till we get to the top of that post. Those tomatoes shouldn't grow taller than the top of that post there. So probably, I don't know, 5 lines total, maybe 6. We'll put as many as we need to keep these babies upright. If one piece of this ever falls, it can be a mess. So I'm not opposed to putting lots of lines of string on there, but this should hold them pretty good here until they grow a little more. See that nice little crisscross pattern there? That's why we call it the weave. And we got everything connected here. Now I still got a little work to do on those tomatillos and some of those odds and end peppers and tomatoes on the end of that 3rd row. But I believe I might get wet doing it. If you look at that cloud back there, that storm's coming in fast. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the camera up so I don't get my camera wet if it does all of a sudden start flooding. Let me know if you're growing any of these same varieties that I'm growing and how they're looking so far for you. I guess if you live in the deep south, you may already be getting some tomato production. Also, let me know about that Abe Lincoln tomato. That's the only one of all the varieties I'm growing that just doesn't look that great and is really underperforming. Tell me if you've had good luck with the Abe Lincoln, or maybe if they taste so good that it's worth it, you know, not having a whole lot of plant vigor. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe, ring the bell, like, and share, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.
Oh.